Messenger, Frontline Messengers podcast. I'm Dan the Messenger, the host, and the co-host tonight will be coming on just a minute. I want to thank every one of you for tuning in, for following us on the front lines. The reason why we created Frontline Messengers, Nurse Nicole and myself, is there are so many people that are fighting similar battles in different sectors. We're all doing the best we can to get help to our brothers and sisters out there. And what better way to me to honor these people and to build bridges across the battlefield that we're currently dealing with is to give you guys who I feel and respect are the frontline messengers that are really standing in 10 toes in. They're literally giving you everything they got. And in a battle that is a global effort of literally, if we just go to the basic of good versus evil, these are the guys that you want standing next side of you in the firefight. These are the ones you want next to you, giving you the advice, the help that you desperately need in whatever scenario you are currently dealing with. And with that, welcome to Frontline Messengers. So episode 1, the 21st century AIDS. Many of my frontline messengers that are on here tonight that are experts in their fields have been calling this since 2020. The show that we are currently doing tonight, one of the doctors on the front lines, Dr. Villa, did a 3,500 patient trial looking at biomarkers, looking at key portions of the immune system that we've been saying that are under attack. And just like we knew, the human's body's anatomy does not have a finite amount of resources. And her study is confirmed, her peer review with Dr. Zhivjets, Dr. Nicholas, PhD Holzer, some other incredible people that were participants and helped with this 3,500 patient cohort to show what we are currently seeing is not only true and relevant, but it is even more systemic than we could possibly have imagined. Now, before I bring on my co-host, she, to me, my lioness, one of my tribe, my pride, I was gonna show a video of her speaking like with Nurses Out Loud, but let me show you the human side, because many of us, the guys, we get it. The women on the front lines that are mothers, that are family, in order for us to build the army that we need our moms. We need the moms across America. We need the mom squad. We need the mama bears to join us, to knock your guy on the head, stop, pay attention. Hey, idiot, listen to this. We got something for you. I'm going to show you what her day's like, because she is a warrior, a mother, a frontline just hero to me. And I'm so proud to introduce my co-host. But before I do so, here.
Nothing feels better than this. Nothing feels better. Nothing feels better than this. Nothing feels better. Nothing feels better than me.
Welcome, Nicole, Nurse Nicole from Nurses Out Loud, and now the co-host of Frontline Messengers. I got a bunch of the mothers feel like that video, correct? That you do.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things when you're running on E and you're getting pulled in a million different directions. It can be really hard when you're exhausted and just wanting to tap out, because unfortunately we don't have that luxury, right? We're always needed, whether it's our family, our children, work life, and on top of all of that, it's the community. I come in and I help with community things when it comes to advocacy, and not a lot of those individuals have the option to tap out and get a reprieve. And so since they don't, I keep going as well to try to help and stand in for times when they can't. So yeah.
So we've been talking about doing this podcast, this particular version of a podcast, for about maybe a month and a half, 2 months. And what excites you about this show? Why are you excited about bringing this on to your fellows outside of what you currently are doing? What's your why for this one?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be able to highlight and bring forward other people who have been doing the work, who have been holding the line, as I like to say, putting themselves in positions that are very difficult, right? A lot of people tend to join forces, and when the going gets really tough, they back out. And these individuals have held the line. They've continued to push through and show up when it was not easy to do so. And so, having this podcast and being able to highlight individuals that are out there and doing the work and really making a difference, they need to be highlighted. We need to show the world that these people exist and highlight who they are so that individuals can reach out and hopefully gain some more information from these individuals as well.
Yeah, because we all know this, that there are millions of people that are suffering a chronic illness crisis, millions. And when I was traveling with Pete and some others, I'd say we could put 10,000 of us, each one of us, across the country, and it still wouldn't be enough to deal with what we're currently dealing with. So we're trying to connect and build bridges with our brothers and sisters across the front lines that we already know, but it's hard when we're each in that battle fight and that firefight. And it's not always going to be about just COVID or back injury. There's trafficking. There's the border issues. There's the food issues. I mean, there's so many different things that different frontline heroes are doing. And the reason why I chose this one for the first one is because it's the biggest crisis we're currently dealing with. If we don't tackle this, if we don't put the fire out across the nation and the globe, we will have so many more problems. The 99 that we currently feel, the 9,900 will be times 100. And so this, to me, I'm humbly just so honored for every person that ever comes on. You, Scott, we're about to bring on and introduce Scott, the most dangerous man in Washington. For what? For saving kids and for saving lives at the beginning of this pandemic. And I'm going to share a video of Scott before we bring him on and give his little introduction. And then we're going to introduce another hero in the front lines, Dr. Tal Braun. Again, brothers and heroes that there's not enough I can say. I'm not articulate enough to give the amount of accolades that all these humans that are doing this type of work deserve, because it's thankless, it's tireless. There's tens of thousands of hours that have been put upon all the ones that we're working with. And the history books, I pray, record them for the heroes they truly are. So let me find this one from Scott, because this is what poor Scott had to go through.
Thank you. I have one last question for you, Dr. Hackett. Is there anything further that you think is important for the Alaska Medical Commission to hear or know, or any final thoughts in the context of whether or not I would be an asset to the state of Alaska?
Yes. I'm sorry if I get emotional again. Mr. Miller is the kindest, most generous, courageous, humble, smart, hardworking, capable doctor that I know, even though he's lost some of that, or lost the title. He is willing to do anything in his power and capabilities to help others. And like I said, he always puts others first. And so after I had this experience with my mom, it's become even more apparent to me that he's a 1 in a million type of doctor that cares so much for others that he stops at nothing to help them. And I know that I want people like that in my life and in my community, and I sure as heck want it in the doctor that I'm going to go see.
Now, if you don't know who Scott Miller is, this is his book, The Most Dangerous Man in Washington. It tells his heroic tale of what he's given up trying to help and save brothers and sisters across this country. And he's a hero in my books. I've interviewed him on the Dan the Messenger podcast. I don't know if you've had him on Nurses Out Loud, but if you're lucky and fortunate enough to meet and talk to this man as an advocate, as a patient, as someone who's needing help, This guy is a brother on the front lines, and I am so humble and thank you for coming on, Mr. Scott Miller, the most dangerous. Are you still the most dangerous man in Washington?
No, and listen, when I would hear things like that, or I'm a truly substantive evil, I would think about the day that I had and some of the things that I had done, because I've done some sketchy things. I'm but not like that. So I try and go through it. Like, I said some unkind words to my son when he threw food on me. I was like, hey, don't do that. But what's funny, when I look at the documentation that I have, and how my actions were viewed as a truly substantive evil, those are the words. My very utterances, the misinformation and disinformation, the act of disruption of hospital care, and because of my words, I encourage people to not just go to the hospital or to not get the shots, that I led to the deaths of tens of thousands of people. And I thought, you can't combat that. Like, you can't. I have no defenses against the words they say, because they turn them into what becomes findings of fact. And I asked Dan before coming on, like, what video are you going to put on there, so I know how to respond. I didn't know you were going to play that video, and seeing a colleague, seeing somebody, I get like, not an emotion, seeing that, and her emotion, and knowing how we work together, and the people that we were able to help and bring care to, it hits me. It was always such a privilege and honor to get up in the morning and go serve, children and their families, and then later on, their parents and grandparents, and just do everything within my power to, protect and preserve the sanctity of life. So I always looked at it as like God gifted me these talents, and a complete and total lack of self-preservation. I missed that gene, and he would just say, go serve. I'm like, okay, Lord. And I'm like, what an honor to be able to do that. So yay.
And that's what I find with most of the frontline people that have stood in the gap for patients on principle, on the evil powers that have caused this, is Christianity, followers of Jesus Christ. And I go, I'm so proud to stand next to all of you. Now, Scott, give me a minute here, because I'm going to bring in another brother on the front lines, another hero on the front lines, Dr. Tal Braun, bioweapons expert, terror expert. If something goes wrong and there's a mass casualty event, this is the guy we bring in. This is the guy we go, okay, it's a mass casualty event. We're the responders. How do we go? And we triage, and this guy's overseeing the entire event. He's the casualty guy who's directing and training to make sure people are doing what needs to be done. And this hero in 2020 was screaming to the rooftops of what this was, what was causing this, and some basic, very intricate, simple protocols that saved thousands of lives, just like what you were doing. So each one of you are so much, I'm just so humbled that you're on the very first episode of the show, because you're true heroes, and there's not enough accolades I could ever give any of you. So I'm gonna play a quick video of our brother here, and I'm gonna bring him on, and then I'll bring you guys back on, okay? Off. Okay, so you're off. Thank you for giving me such a hard time tonight. Thank you, Lord. All right, here's a video from our good brother, Dr. Tal Braun.
U.S. National Counterterrorism Advisor and trainer, Dr. Tal Braun. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure. It was needed one. I can't stand listening to Dr. Hotez going from somebody that was actually warning the world at the beginning of all of this about these vaccines, saying that this technology was dangerous, went on public record to say it was dangerous, and then all of a sudden into the race of vaccine development, proudly saying that they have a an IP patent-free process that they're going to bring to the world with their vaccine to places like India. Ultimately, there's a genetic component to this bioweapon that no one likes to talk about. But places like Bangladesh and India, certain South American countries, and then people across the world, dispersed across the world, are actually incredibly high risk to severe adverse reactions and death from the spike protein on a genetic basis, India being one of those countries. So to watch Peter Hotez ignore all of that and then put together a vaccine that was supposed to be for developing countries and countries that weren't going to be able to afford this, and put this out there, is just a sign that he is literally another propaganda tool of mass genocide.
What does the Bible say about being bold like a lion? This dude right here, my brother, is a freaking hero at a Lion of Judah for sure. Dr. Tal Braun, welcome to the podcast of Frontline Messengers, my friend. A hero.
Thank you, Dan. Just an absolute honor to be invited, and what a ride that we've been on. We've been at this for a while, and I applaud your efforts. I mean, the ability to get messages out is absolutely key. I think that somebody made a comment the other day about how important storytelling is. Storytelling in real time is a message. And, I think the message that you've been conveying during this time has been crucial, not only as a warning to people, but bringing people solutions and hope, and bringing people back to good, solid, foundational ethical behavior, in terms of people have lost their moral compass. And so you, as a constant reminder to the spiritual aspect of this, is absolutely key.
Well, we've seen some miracles over the last 5 years. The Jesus revolution that we've seen over the last 24 months could not have been predicted, especially with Charlie, what happened to Charlie. We need the youth to turn to Jesus. We need that light in the darkness. And we've been the light as bright as we possibly can, all of us. And the newer Christian converts, welcome aboard, my brothers and sisters, because we need every one of you in this army to be a light in the darkness, to be a solution to the problem, to stand up when people are talking about propaganda to you. And someone like you stand on business. I love one of our earliest talks. Let me bring Scott in here too. Sorry, Scott.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. You and I were in a group of doctors. Uh-oh. Scott, I think it's you.
Is his mic muted?
Yeah, Scott, your mic. He needs his earphones. But we were standing in we were like in a group like this. It was a private meeting because everyone liked to hide back then. And it was a group of doctors. And you told them, if you think you're still treating a virus, step aside. Because you're way off. Like, this is like 22. And you weren't joking. You absolutely meant it. You're an expert in this. This is your background. This is your super highway of what you were trained in. And I give it to you because I now after that, I'm like, I give them the same business. You created 2 products that need to be back online that I keep patients on. But you knew in 2020, you knew to start making and looking for cancer type of products or natural cancer products. Anacardic acid is your product. And you were dead on, right? Dead to rights. How's that? Scott, can you hear me?
Is that better?
Yes.
I was trying to use my desktop, and I had both going, and I think listen.
Now, Scott, you've never met Dr. Braun, have you? Oh, he locked up.
Dan, I just want to make a comment in terms of what you're saying. 2 things come to mind that I think are really important for people to hear. One of which is the when you talk about coming back to faith, and the important part about that is that anybody can call themselves a religious person. Anyone can call themselves a Christian. And the important thing about calling oneself something is that the behavior has to match the definition, right? And so part of what I have been looking at lately is how many people will call themselves a Christian, but their actions are completely against what Christianity brings. So, for example, I'm not going to name him, but somebody who I see often in his social media is just somebody who's racist, somebody who's intolerant, somebody who's literally their words are essentially killing people, somebody who's been bringing the propaganda of these COVID vaccines to people throughout the entire pandemic and squashes all other data, squashes the real-time experience that we're all going through. And that's not Christian. I think ultimately what values all religions bring to the table when practiced correctly is truth. At the central tenet to all religions is an aspect of truth, and doing it without question and with unwavering commitment, and bringing even to the point where you can see the ultimate sacrifice that truth can bring, right? Losing one's life, losing one's livelihood, losing the friends and family around you. That's true commitment to religious and spiritual ideals. And I think that is a key component for people to be able to start separating out the wheat from the chaff.
And for me, especially, what I'm seeing with all the infighting going on, what we consider our side, I just go turn to Jesus. Follow Jesus. What was Jesus doing when he was here? In the most simplest terms, he was helping the sick and he was helping the poor. And for people like us, to me, that's the most important mission that we could possibly do during these dark times. And Scott Miller was just telling us, can you talk a little publicly about, we were talking about social media and responses, and he was like a little busy. Because I mentioned earlier today when I did live, I said, we have a respiratory crisis going on right now across the country. It's happening again. And there's mechanisms to this, right? And Scott, would you talk about a little bit about that, what you're seeing, some of these things, and why it's important to know? Not the patient individually, but just in general.
No, yeah, I hadn't intended on discussing this. I think I'm glad you brought it up, because we're so, just the word COVID, everyone seems to be just depleted of it, except for the powers that be. Their job is still very much in full force, and particularly the hospitals. And these aren't necessarily people going in with respiratory issues. It could be somebody that had a stroke. It could be somebody that had a seizure, and 2 days later they're on a ventilator. And if we're not pretty aggressive about it, they don't come out of the hospital. The cases that people reached out for me were specific for respiratory issues, and I just get dinged. It just says Scott Miller, and I respond, and I've been put on a ventilator, pneumonia, and the first question one of the first questions I'll ask the family member is, like, how all in are you? Like, what are you willing to do, to protect their life? Because like once I'm in, I'm all in. I will do everything I can. I'll move mountains to try and preserve that life. And this first gentleman was like, I would do anything. I was like, yay, that's a great start. And he did. And we called the hospital, and I was able to speak with the doctor. And again, I've as Nicole knows, you can't just give them facts. You have to use a lot of like neurolinguistic programming. You have to trick them. You have to make it feel like they're in charge. And there's certain words you can never ever say, like those hydroxychloroquine. You can never say those words to a doctor in a hospital. You'll get shut down. So it's finding out a way to make them feel empowered, to make them feel like they're in charge, and then manipulate them into making the changes that I feel necessary to help start righting the ship. And then we send people. He was willing to the family member was willing to go in with some liquid ivermectin and rubbed it on her chest and on her feet. And 2 days later, she was off the ventilator. And then we were actually able to fully engage with therapies, while she was still in the hospital, to get her out. And that's kind of the standard of, what we're seeing quite a bit of that. So, my mission is to get the message out for people to not even get near that situation where they're starting to, where they're becoming sick sicker and sicker, just like we saw in 2020, especially 21 and 22, where it was diabolical. But there's a bit of apathy. I'm in my office, I'm surrounded by stuff that can make pretty much anything go away like that. And I've spoken about it quite a bit. I beg everybody, if I hear somebody with a or my throat's a little scratchy, or I'm feeling a little, crank up your vitamin D and zinc and vitamins, like that stuff, and then take some 24 of ivermectin and some hydroxychloroquine and 0.6 of colchicine, and be your own hero.
Well, Nicole, you hit on something the other day in a post that you put out there, that how come people aren't hearing this more often? And the answer is, you got a memo. Was it you or someone that shared a memo internally, threatening kind of? Tell us what you.
Well, I mean, we continue to have these things happen in the hospital system. I have been a nurse 20 years in the acute care setting. These people are coming in more and more really sick, fragile, and there's a lot of conversation about what's happened since the pandemic, post-pandemic. Obviously, a lot of medications that have been brought up, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, talking about hospital protocols. What a lot of people still don't realize is remdesivir, even in the great free state of Florida, is still being given for different tiers of COVID. And so there's a lot of information that's just not out there when it comes to what are your options, what are your rights as a patient. And a lot of times in the hospital settings, you're told not to discuss it. There's been non-disclosures signed. There are people that are fearful that if they speak up, that they're going to lose their job. And so it's becoming a little bit more understood, but it's still not being openly discussed in these settings without fear of retaliation. And so it's a really big issue to try to break out of the echo chamber and continue to have these podcasts and just these meetings and trying to get together with like-minded individuals to spread that message and get it out there so that people know, if you're not watching certain social media or news stations, you're not going to hear this information. And there's a lot of people that still come into the hospital that don't know any of this information. They don't understand how it works, and that people are being treated with these medications, that they do have alternative uses, and they are working, like Dr. Mackis's orthomolecular protocol with Dr. Isles Bogley for cancer. Like, there's a lot of things still out there that you just can't hear about because it's not getting out there. We're being censored, we're being silenced, and we're being threatened if we do so.
Well, Dr. Braun, in 2020, you called this respiratory aerosol HIV/AIDS causing product. You were openly saying that was going to happen, and currently we are seeing immune collapse patterns.
Yeah, but to correct you there, I think that from the start, we talked about the fact that this was not a respiratory virus, right? This was not a respiratory infection. That's pretty much, I go back to my earliest notes and my earliest phone calls and emails. What I was pointing out to people right from, I'd say, February onwards is very quickly just looking at the pathology, but differently from other people. Like, I'm not in the medical system. I'm not a medical doctor. So when colleagues were calling me in early 2020 and asking me if this is a bioweapon, and I had to tell them a professional opinion on it. And once very quickly that I worked out that, of course, this was a bioweapon, it changed the way that I would look at, one, whether I could help. That's why you heard me being so forthright in conversations with medical professionals in terms of like, all right, well, let's just, without egos, let's just talk about what your experience is. How much experience have you had with knowledge of intentional violence? How much experience have you had in terms of what weapons can do, and the various grades of damage, destruction, and lethality a weapon has? And very quickly, most medical people will tell you that they have very limited knowledge. They may have heard at med school, that may have heard, depending on what their role is, they may have heard about, okay, this is what we would do if for nerve agents, but they're always hypothetical. The kind of trainings that I went to and the kind of trainings that I led included, terrorist attacks with biological agents, and what that would look like differently to what we call infection, and how very quickly, if you were looking for signs of that you would see that the transmission of that, the contagion of it, wouldn't match, and that's how you would know very quickly that it's a biological attack if you didn't have any other signs. So the impact that I think that is still ongoing, and quite frankly, I'm pretty surprised that there's so little knowledge about what we're dealing with, and also what the solutions are and some of the mitigation strategies. I don't think that in 2020, Dan, if you would have asked me, or 2021, even 2022, if we'd be going into 2026 with almost embarrassingly ignorant belief systems around what this is and what we do about it. And I think that's the part that I think is the most frustrating for me. And I think people can hear that frustration and desperation in these type of, whether it's a podcast, whether it's my post, whether it's a video, because for me, it's like being trapped in, a nightmare where everybody around you is delusional, right? In some sense, and you have a firm grasp on reality, which is most of our community. We all experiencing this state where the people around us are absolutely crazy, and that includes not just people that would be necessarily pushing the vaccines, but so much about what this is that is still discussed as some form of truth. The idea that this is a virus, the idea that this is going to behave like a regular virus, the idea that that transmission could be blocked by mask wearing, for example, all of those things. The whole framework of it is so absurd that the people that have knowledge on it, I think, quite frankly, what we often do is meet in community just to have a check-in and still feel sane, right? Have we lost our sanity around this? I think for me, and I know this is long-winded, I think, this is perfect timing that I was on your show tonight, because I look at my own, I take a meta perspective of life, and I also, I think self-awareness is a form of intelligence, and not being aware even of your own brain damage is a form of neurodegenerative disease, which people are going through from spike protein exposure. So the timing of this is perfect for me, because what I want to add tonight to this is what I want people to be aware of as they watch the timeline and time frame of this, is that the show is coming to an end. Right, so we've seen that in terms of the reduced uptake of the vaccines. You've seen that the show went away. Got some music happening. The show went away for a while in terms of the mask wearing and all the other mandates. But the show is truly coming to an end now. You can hear the main characters being told, exit stage left. Take your bow. I mean, it's the paychecks are coming, right? So one of the earliest that you can spot of this is Peter Daszak of EcoHealth is currently suing his board, right? So everyone's like, oh, poor Peter Daszak, he's making fun of him, like, oh, he really needs to sue them, and he's the creator of all this. No, what he's doing is he's picking up his paycheck, because there's no way they're not going to settle with him. Right, this is never going to a court anywhere in the world, which is the same reason that doctors got let off the hook for not vaccinating people. There was a recent case of that. And so what you're seeing is the paychecks are coming. So what will happen in my prediction with Peter Daszak is that he'll get a settlement, and that settlement, he's pushing for $3 million, but that settlement is going to be, a fraction of that, whatever it is, $1 million check is going to be his payout for being the fall guy. Right, they're not going to be able to do that while he's in his current role as I think he was the CEO, or whatever it was called, the executive director as a nonprofit. They can't write a check of $1 million and not have that flagged as why is this bonus check from this nonprofit going to be $1 million or $3 million? But they can write that check to him now as being the fall guy. Check back to him now as being the fall guy. Check back to him now I've got some echo happening. And then the other one that I want to point out is, when I said that I'm despondent today, it's that I saw a post with Dr. Robert Malone with his 1.2 million followers, and the same thing is happening, right? And I have to be cautious with my words because he likes to just squash people in terms of their criticism of him. He just sues. That's his modus operandi. It's a terrible strategy, and it's a threat, right? I mean, when you watch somebody sue people, it's a way of stifling their voice. And so I'm watching, Robert Malone is like, oh, now, it took long enough, but, I was canceled. I got, a lifetime ban from LinkedIn, and they haven't done this. I was defamed for years. No, he's just got a position, in another biomedical field. I think he's going to, his title is going to be professor somewhere at a university. But of course, it's going to come with contracts, and of course, it's going to be in the wheelhouse that he was doing, which was biowarfare, and it's going to be the exact work that he was doing pre-pandemic, which I think a lot of people have memory hold. But when Robert Malone, what he was doing when he first got the call to join this fight against this virus. I mean, what was he working on? Repurposed drugs for a nerve agent, right? So it's like everybody thinks of him as the mRNA guy. No, he's a biowarfare guy, dual development, right? So you've got him exiting the stage. I mean, like, here's my applaud, for Robert Malone. Like, your checks are coming, right? You've played your role in this, and now you can go. I think that to me is the most frustrating part about the human memory system. How we build a thread of memories, and we build a framework for people on narratives, right? It's all storytelling, and what we do is our biases. We create a bias. So he's been framed as the people's hero for speaking up about things like the contamination. That's not heroic at all, because with or without contamination, the vaccines have a high level of lethality to them. So the distraction is, oh, look at this. If they'd used process 1, if they used process 2, they've left this, they've left SV40 in it. Oh, it's got plasmids in it. It's all a distraction, because with or without those, the actual molecular hybrid toxin that they built is a nerve agent. So call it what it is, and tell people, no matter what you were going to do with it, if you were going to use it in any way, whether you're going to do a disbursement of it, or if you were going to inject it, or you're going to make a nasal vaccine of it, it's going to have that lethality regardless of the process that you're using, right? It's embarrassing. It's from a biological standpoint, what I'm passionate about is, none of this makes sense in terms of textbook science. None of it makes sense for anybody who's gone to 1 or 2 years of study of biological systems, of physiology, of looking at the mechanics of the body. So that's the giveaway for me, in terms of that we really have not moved the dial much in terms of the discussion at all, right?
Well, that's where I'm coming on with this. I said earlier in my little live that the generals have left the wounded. They're off on their own path now. They're doing their own thing. We are the ones left behind to care for our brothers and sisters that are suffering what we now call the 21st century AIDS of this generation, what we are currently dealing with. And Dr. Villa, hopefully she comes on here shortly, did a 3,500 patient trial, looking at the biomarkers, looking at everything you need to show, if we were going to court of law, let's say, this is what's happening to immune systems. They're getting imploded, crushed, obliterated. And we are trying to, on the battlefield, pick up the walking wounded, get them to a caretaker or a group that can help. Scott, you had something to say. What's that?
I think the other thing that's important, and I have a tendency of doing it too, because it's more easy to, it's far easier to see, to hear, to, when you're just evaluating a patient, or you can hear them. I don't see patients anymore but just, and I could be wrong, but everything I saw goes back to this first and foremost being a circulatory issue. Later on, then getting into the pulmonary issue. and it's rarely talked about. And we see so many people having issues with microclots. We see the strokes, and oftentimes we automatically think vaccine injured because but oh my goodness, there's so many people that have been complete. If your doctor didn't know how to treat COVID, they certainly don't know how to treat long COVID. And I think one of the areas that is neglected is looking at the impact and damage to the circulatory or vascular system.
And it's going to take a village. It's going to take strong leaders like everyone in this room to continue to get. Dr. Braun would speak to me very much about biblical things in 2020. And he would say, our people are in the desert, and we need to get them out of the desert into the land of milk and honey. And that's where we stay true to our beliefs and followers of Jesus Christ. We just have to stay with the mission. How many years, Braun, was Moses in the desert?
40.
And Moses,
but that's symbolic. One of the things that I do, one of the things that have helped me, I want to give credit where credit's due, and I do that with whether it's people's research or whether it's historical figures or whether it's biblical texts. And the interesting thing for me is that my help along the pandemic from the beginning of it has been biblical, right? So, for example, you just said how long was he in the desert? It's metaphorical. It's not necessarily that someone is in the desert for 40 years. 40 years is a generation. So what that is saying is that we're only going to fix this problem in a generation, right? This is, people are like looking at this like, oh, we'll find these solutions and everyone with long COVID will recover. And no, I mean, we know that this is affecting the babies that are born. We know that the babies have been vaccinated. We know children have been vaccinated. So how long would it take a system to really, change genetically, the epigenetics of that? How long would it truly substantially take? It will take a generation. It's going to take the next generation. That's not the children that are born now, right? That's just going to come from the parents, right, of the survivors of this that will have offspring. And that's if they allow us to have offspring, right? Because we're moving towards artificial life forms. We're moving towards incubated wombs. That's the ultimate goal here. So the 40 years is symbolic for me, but all the other solutions, as you know, Dan, have come from me from understanding that the closest match that we've actually had to this was the Exodus, right? So the solutions have all come from me understanding, what did they do to flee the same venomous plague, right? They were playing with venom in Egypt, and they created a plague, and they were playing with the early forms of early vaccinology, which was essentially blowing toxins into the nasal passages. There's relics of that in terms of hieroglyphics and pictures, right? You look at the pictograms, and they were playing with of early forms of trying to infect a body and trying to create an immune system, but they very quickly realized that was profitable, right? So you have the same thing happening in terms of the powers that be. You have the royalty and the royal families that are essentially poisoning the peasants and using the learned folks, using the scholars and using the doctors to do their dirty work, and ultimately the people that are suffering are the slaves, right? You poison the slaves, and then those slaves have to turn to those same systems. They're never allowed to be empowered. They're never allowed to find their own solutions. Every thing that they would know themselves, every cure that they could find from Earth that would help them, that's not allowed. That's not tested. That's not FDA. There's no you can't prescribe that. You can't make health insurance pay for this. It's the same thing, right? That's why slavery did not die. It just cycles through different people. And now we're moving towards a time period of worldwide slavery. I have a tendency, as you see, I get very passionate and my brain just works and I want to speak. But I want to address something that Scott said. And it's important that I find the right tone to this, because as Dan said in one of our earliest meetings, I flat out told people in that meeting, like, if you're a medical doctor, or if you've had medical training in this, I'm not saying you're not smart. I'm not saying that you don't know your medicine. And I'm not saying that you don't treat patients and see them better. But to this day, and Dan can testify to this, there is almost nobody from the medical community that's actually said to me, can you share what you know so that I can learn, so that I can help my patients, right? And just think about the absurdity to that. Everybody wants to talk about this as a bioweapon, and yet they treat it as an approach that they're dealing with some form of regular sickness and disease, right? So somebody is, got a bacterial infection, or someone's got food poisoning, or someone's been in a car accident. The framework of this is entirely wrong. And it's to me, and I find it as people can see in terms of my own transformation. They said that they basically said that Moses grew a horn, right, in the Bible. That he and essentially, I think there's a couple things. One is that you become calloused, right? I think when you look at metaphorically, did he really grow horns? Did he have a big rhino horn? No. The word becoming, the word that they use is that he became, I think they talk about a type of light that he had with him, and he became calloused. Right, and that's where I'm at the moment. So Scott and Nicole and anybody else that's listening, my invitation to you as leaders in this is let's dialogue. Let's dialogue in the way where I can teach you everything I know about this from the perspective of why it's not just a circulatory issue and why it's not a pulmonary issue. Let me be able to frame it in a way where you know what you're dealing with and the systems that are involved in it. And then you get to go on and you get to be able to be even better at the tools you're doing. I think the thing that I can't teach people, that no one can teach anybody, is the compassionate part, right? And the honesty part and the humility part. I think that is where I absolutely am inspired by all of these stories of people that have put themselves on the line, that have been on the front line, that have been truth tellers. But the part that's missing, that I'm hoping to inspire people, is let's just dialogue about what this is and what it does to the body. Let's start there, right?
Well, here's one of the problems, and I could not agree more, Dr. Brown. I mean, when people ask me about my story, and I never know where to begin, except for my wife looking at me on March 12th of 2020, and she's like, well, can't you just figure out how to fix this, like in such a matter-of-fact way, where it was like, if I couldn't, then I was an idiot. It's like, I guess. And the path, and it took 3 days to really get into the systems, but it wasn't because I was smart. It's that I would pray about it, and all of a sudden I'd find information and I would share it with her. I'm like, this blueprint and the number of systems that were affected, what you were talking about, like, it was so overwhelming. And it was March 15th, 2020, when I came across these journals and papers, and I didn't know what I was reading until I hit the melatonin component. And then and they were going deep into melatonin. I'm like, nuh-uh. I didn't know what to think. I'm like, melatonin, really? But you brought it up. I've spoken with hundreds of doctors. I've done hundreds and hundreds of hospital advocacy calls. You're right. I've had a couple doctors say, how did you know that? Like, after they saw a patient go from 60 liters high flow, about to be put on a ventilator, and they wake up the next morning sitting up at 12 to 15, eating breakfast, FaceTiming their wife. And like, well, how did you know to do that? And I was like, the fact that he said that was, I've never heard a doctor even acknowledge that it could be that. And so I walked through it with him, and he said, that's really interesting. Can you send me some information on it? And I did. It was never used. Like, those protocols were never used because, they had a different goal set in mind. But it truly is like time. And Nicole, you know this very, very well. It's like talking to a brick wall. There's no recognition. They could watch somebody literally transform in front of them, and they would come up with some excuse as to why it happened without even, they'd say, well, it can't be that. That's not how it works. It can't happen. It's it's like that VMAT2 gene thing that they would show of Gates, where it's like it's made them retarded.
Well, you bring up another piece of the that people say is a conspiracy theory. Is this destroying spirituality? Absolutely. If you would have said that to people in 2020, they would have said, well, there's no way that's going to happen, and that's nonsense. But now you can actually just take a completely physiological approach, and you can have a look at the changes in the brain regions. So one of the major changes that's taking place are the circuits in the brain that control moral reasoning, decision making, ethics, empathy, right? I mean, you have brain damage in those regions. Like that is you can do an MRI on somebody, and you can do functional MRIs, and you can see that the circuitry is damaged. And if we know that those circuits are involved in these kind of things, and that's at the core a big part of what it is to be human, and a big part of what it is to spiritual. And if we know that that's happening to people, then yes, we can absolutely say, yes, this is a spiritual component. And you bring up the God gene. Yes, this is absolutely affecting genetics, and part of the risk of it comes from the Neanderthal gene. Well, I said not part, entirely the risk of it is genetically tied to Neanderthal genes, but so is the ability to survive it. So if you are balanced you are a survivor as a Neanderthal, right? Of this of a go ahead, Dan.
Lucky me. No, I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you're but luck's a part of it. If you have a look at when we met, and the same thing has not changed in terms of almost 6 years. I just put out another a video in terms of a protocol that I'm calling rewilding, and it's very, very similar, Dan, to everything that I told you to do, including drop your carbs and your sugars because your body can't process them. So just like feeding cancer and inflammation, you have to go onto meats. I told you to eat lamb, your organ meats. Like, you've got to understand the biological processes that have shifted, and that's being driven by the changeover of bacteria in the body. So the ability to understand the triggers that this doing, then it leads to some pretty great and easy solutions. What this feels like for me in terms of watching the medical model try and tackle essentially a best definition that I can give this is that it's a biotoxin. It is a biotoxin that is a nerve agent. Once you have a nerve agent, you have acute side effects of a nerve agent, and then you have long-term impact of a nerve agent. And that's what long COVID is, and that's what vaccine injury is. It's long-term impact from a nerve agent. And the issue that I think the framework that doctors are trying to do, it reminds me of a viral video that floated around a couple of years ago with somebody on an airplane that was trying to put a suitcase in the overhead compartment. And this adult was just struggling with this suitcase. No matter what they did, they were just trying to reconfigure it, and it should fit easily in terms of the size. And finally, the flight attendant comes on over, after an immense amount of time, and just picks it up, and puts it in. Now that can happen to people. That can happen. That locked up, what we call helmet fire, can happen to anybody.
Ron.
Yep.
So the doctor that just did the trial with the 3,500 patients, Dr. Villa, is now in. So
cool. Excellent.
Let me hold you off. So everybody has been waiting on. She's here. I'm going to play a quick video, and then there's Nicole. Before we bring her on, I want you to introduce her. Will you do that for me, please? All right, I'm going to play the video real quick, and hold on, guys.
You want to make America healthy again, it had to be stopped.
My eyeballs are shot. So let me see here.
Thank you. I have one last question for you, Dr. Hack. That was me.
Sorry, guys, that's me.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Marivic Villa. I am a practicing internist pulmonologist in the Villages, Florida, for over 20 years. I have very extensive experience in treating COVID. During the pandemic, I treated acute COVID, long COVID, and then when the vaccine was rolled out, I started treating vaccine complication. Eventually, we call it long vaccine. In my practice, Villa Health Center, we have more than 4,500 cases, which we are doing a research on. I am the principal investigator, but I'm also working with other excellent and exceptional doctors and researchers. I'm lucky to have them. And so we're doing a retrospective study. So we're reviewing data starting 2021. Our preliminary findings are actually very disturbing. There's an obvious immune dysfunction, immune dysregulation, immune disorder, however you want to call it. Yeah, in the form of autoimmune diseases. It's probably about 60-70% of cases are developing autoimmune. And then there's a very obvious immune deficiency, which is affecting both humoral and a cell-mediated immunity. And so this immune deficiency is actually reminding me of the AIDS from COVID, except that it is worse.
And with that being said, Dr. Marivic Villa is a wonderful human being who puts in hours and hours and hours upon hours treating patients, seeing patients, and hosting events, not only in the United States, but outside of the United States, in the Philippines and other countries. She is a dear friend. And with that introduction, I mean, there's nothing else to say. So I'm very glad she's here. Hey, Dr. Villa.
Hi, Nick. Thank you so much for inviting me. I was just like, to tell you honestly, I completely forgot about the time I was just seeing like so many patients today. This is like the hi Dan. Thank you
Dr.
for
Bill,
inviting me.
we won't hold against you that you're busy
Yeah,
because that you're doing the Lord's
yeah,
work, helping our brothers and sisters, and we love it.
Literally.
Let's bring the rest of the gang in
yeah.
on the show. But keep going, Dr. Bill.
Yeah, we can have a part two if this is not enough. I mean, you guys heard me, that's my or what do you call it, is my life right now. The information that I gathered from this retrospective study really needs to come out and really needs to be told, to the world, because it's a very important, information, very important topic. Actually, I was listening to what you just played, and I said the immune deficiency or the AIDS that it reminds me of is really the AIDS from HIV, except that it is worse. I don't know why I said COVID, but you should do a comparison, because when somebody says it's AIDS, and everybody just think about HIV. But I want to tell everyone, I mean, we are in the final stages of analyzing the entire data. We collected it from, well, we actually had like 5,000 patients, but I couldn't include everyone because there's only one me, and people or the patients needed to be tested. It's not just humanly possible sometimes to do all these things. So basically, just to give you a an idea how we're doing it, is we actually divided the entire groups, or the entire population, into four groups. And that is, number one, the vaccinated without COVID, vaccinated with COVID, and vaccinated with COVID, and the unvaccinated without COVID, or without the infection. And it's actually the smallest group, that one. You can hardly find people without vaccine or without infection. But I was able to find like some 200 people. So we'll see. So the idea is to actually compare the immunologic profile of these four groups. And it's actually very stunning because I see them every day. So I know what I see. And it's really AIDS. I cannot call it any other way. It's AIDS. And the AIDS is because, if people, you guys who are listening, if you're familiar with our, it's like, I'm going to make this like for lay people, so that you understand. if your immune system is like your military, you have your soldiers and you have your ammunition. So basically, in HIV, you have your soldier called CD4. When that drops, then you develop the AIDS associated with HIV. But guess what? In this COVID, whether it's COVID injection or COVID infection, we should call it that now, because both infection and injection will actually give you the very, what do you call this, entity that's actually causing the disease, or at least majority of the disease. And that's no other than the spike protein, yeah? You can get it from infection, you can get it from injection. And so if it's injection, it's a little bit more, I think, worse, just because everything gets transfected. Once the vaccine is inside your body, it can infiltrate any cells in your body, and that's why the disease that it's causing, or the disease syndrome, that it is causing, is actually very complicated. It's a multi-organ system involvement. And it can also happen in the infection, but we have to see if it's at a lesser degree. But I also see infected individual developing like really bad long COVID or post-COVID condition, or post-COVID syndrome. In the immunological picture, if you don't tell me that this patient is infected and this patient is injected, it's like there's no difference. And this is the very painful fact that we are actually going to bring to the world. And the problem is, it's not just CD4 that is affected. It's affecting it globally, the CD8, the CD3, the CD19, the CD3. Oh, thank you, Dan. That's very good. The CD3 is actually the population of T lymphocyte that is making a determination whether the T lymphocyte is going to develop into CD4 or CD8. So that's CD3 is almost like the population of the entire T cell. And then you have the CD19. The CD19 is a population of your B cell. Eventually, when they mature, then they become plasma cell and they start producing your natural antibody. They're producing the antibody from infection, and it's also producing your natural antibody with or without infection. You're going to produce it because it's one of the things that you use to fight anything. And so I see it also going down. And so these people will present two kinds of immune deficiency: the cell-mediated immune deficiency, and then you have the humoral or the antibody-mediated immune deficiency. So just imagine people who are having both. What kind of immune system are you going to have? It's going to be very, very weak, very, very low. Your ability to fight any infection, whether it's viruses, whether it's fungal infection, whether, certain bacterial infection that are actually, like, let's say, for example, TB, leprosy, Lyme, they all have latency period, meaning they go into quiescent. And then when this COVID comes in, infection or injection, they get reactivated. And mind you, when they get reactivated, they will do exactly the same thing. It will suppress your immune system. So it's layers and layers of immune suppression. And so my fear is, so just imagine, in other talk show that I guested, I've been telling people, this is not a matter of if, this is just a matter of when. And so there are some people who got vaccinated just with one dose. I don't even put it like it's a booster. I want to know how many doses they've gotten,
Sorry, guys. Hold on.
One, it's going to develop into something. I'm just talking, but you're free to ask, interact or ask question. But that's what I'm seeing. But we are not done with the final analysis. I pray very, very fervently that I am actually wrong. But if I am, if this is the truth that we're going to present to the world, we need a lot of help from, like, let's say, I cannot do it alone. I think I know what to do. I think I know what to do. Or there's some solution that I can actually suggest. But the resources is, even this retrospective study, it's a lot of expense, no? So the resources is limited. And so the government and the higher ups, they need to intervene. Because just imagine 2/3 of the world population were vaccinated. So just imagine, even if, like, let's say, I don't know, 30% or 25% of those vaccinated develop this complication. That's a lot of burden. And there is just no, and I think my population is actually, the retirees, so they are seniors, but I don't think it's going to be different in the young people. I think this is happening across the board, all the age group. It doesn't matter, because once your immune system, your immune cells are actually infiltrated, transfected, it's going to manifest the same way. It is going to make the cell sick, no matter what it is: the brain, the heart, your cells, immune cells, your liver. I see it all. Just like in the beginning, I would see like autoimmune, like a few, and then each year it's getting more and more. And then I think this year I would say up to 80%, 70% of the cases are developing autoimmune. And it's not just one kind, but the most common is there is a auto antibody called ANA, which can actually develop into something, I see rheumatoid arthritis, I see Sjogren, see scleroderma, I see A.P.S., which is an antiphospholipid syndrome. I see, of course, the heart, all the myocarditis that we're seeing. There's always an underlying autoimmune process or inflammation that is actually caused by the by the infiltration of either the vaccine or the virus. And then the spike protein is actually deposited, or is it gets into the cell of whatever organ system. It's just as simple as that.
We're all shaking our heads. Dr.
Yep.
Braun,
Yeah.
Scott, we all see the same things.
Dan, I've got to start wrapping up in a couple minutes, but I wanted to extend an invitation to Dr. Villa. And first of all, I want to thank you. I want to applaud your work. And I think before you came on, or if you listen to this again, you will hear that part of what I want to do, and part of what's been extremely frustrating for me, is I want to explain what's happening. Right. So, Dan, if you can go back to a gallery view, just it'll help me to talk directly to Dr. Villa. I think that is the part that you missed from this conversation, is that people tiptoe around the fact that this is a bioweapon, right? But everybody's looking at their medical textbooks. But I'm yet to meet more than I don't know, 3 people that I know that actually know the pathophysiology of bioweapons. Right? Mm-hmm. It's not something you went to school for. It's not something that FLCC talks about. It's not something that it's just not, right? I mean, let's be honest about the level of training. And so you're spot on, right, in terms of your observations. The data is going to match it. It's spot on that it is HIV. Why? Because there's an HIV sequence. It shouldn't be, it's not, it shouldn't be surprising to anybody. The expression, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck, right? So if you have an HIV sequence in the spike protein, why wouldn't it cause HIV? All right. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
right. So the disconnect for me, right? And I, sorry if I'm being abrupt, but the disconnect for me, and where people are always going to hear this from me, this is not a game. We're not in a simulation. This is not virtual reality. People's loved ones and their children are dying. So the invitation I extend to you and to Scott and to Nicole and any other medical person is, I'm here to teach, right? I'm here to teach. I can tie this all together for you in a way that not only are your clinical observations 100% correct, your data matches it, and the recovery from protocols will also match. Right, it matches the observation you're seeing. What's missing from this is an understanding of what these mechanisms are, how to completely switch them off. It's not complicated in terms of the fact, like, if someone comes into a house and they go up to the circuit breaker, right? They might look at it in terms of the switches on it, but if an electrician and a master electrician looks at it, they're going to look at that circuit breaker completely differently, right? And they're going to understand the problem, and they're going to diagnose the problem and fix it very quickly, right? And it's the same thing, right? From a molecular standpoint, what's missing from this dialogue is everybody talks about the spike protein, but few people are actually prepared to talk about what the spike protein is, and more importantly, what it does. And I just want to be that as loud as clear, because I think part of what I'm experiencing myself is a sense of deja vu, right? I've known Dan for almost 6 years now. And like I said earlier in the conversation, the dial is not moved. It's not moved. And I'll give you my prediction in terms of your what you're finding with the immune. I think currently we're at around, I would say, 30, a ratio of vaccine injury being in the category of around 60% and 40%. But it's going to even out very quickly, and it's going to end up being around 50-50 because this is genetic. And the word that you used very, very accurately, to me, I wouldn't describe this versus infection versus injection. It's all transfection, right? So this is the world's first biological weapon that is able to transfect, and it's able to transfect cells.
Absolutely.
And it acts like a phage, right? It's not acting like a virus at all. It's a phage. And so you have an aerosolized particle that's like a dust, and it is essentially needs the same delivery system, whether it's an injection or aerosolized or put into a water source or food. It's going to need a carrier, and that carrier is lipid nanoparticles. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's in a vial this big or whether it's floating in the air and suspended in Brownian motion. It's going to need a delivery system, and the delivery system is a lipid nanoparticle, a nanoparticle being the word in terms of how small this is. What surprised me the other day when I compared the chemistry of this to VX nerve agent is by lethality, right? VX is one of the most lethal chemical agents in the world, and the spike protein in lethality is significantly higher, probably at least 10 times higher than VX on its own, right? No viral components needed on its own. So when you think about that, what they've been able to create and why this is such a successful depopulation tool is the amount of people that are impacted by this and the lethality of it, right? So you're dealing with a sub-lethal amount, which people need to understand. If VX was used in a wartime situation, it would be used at lethal amounts, right? And the same thing here. If they truly wanted to kill off the world in a heartbeat, they would just bring out a lethal. They would just expose people like you saw in China, right? Where a lethal amount put you to the ground, right? You saw the videos in China when it first came out. It put you to the ground. In terms of that's nerve agent. Sublethal is going to mimic flus, coughs, and ultimately, if your body clears it, if you're not genetically at risk, you're going to clear it and you're going to be fine, and you probably would never even know that you had it. But if you don't clear it, if you don't have the biological mechanisms of it, it's now chronic nerve agent. and it's going
Yeah.
to wreak havoc in entirely all over the systems in the body. So my invitation to you is absolutely let's spend time with the team,
Yeah.
and finally get somewhere with us.
Yeah, Dr. Braun. Actually, last year I was invited to talk with Dr. Lidepo. I declared this as a bioweapon the first time. That was 2024 because he launched his book. I forgot the name of the book, but and then I'm the chair of the World Council for Health, and I also announced it like officially, like in Florida. I think I don't know if my organization or my World Council for Health was the first one to actually declare, because the second one who actually declared it was the endogenous, this group from Canada, I think.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but I understand exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
because there, by definition and all,
So-
it's nothing but a
So I
bioweapon.
recently named it, right? And so this is
Yeah.
a great podcast, because Dan was, I think, the first person that ever interviewed me, and I declared it a bioweapon in 2020, and I declared it a bioweapon in March of 2020, and had so many offline conversations with people in very, very high up places, and that's where I knew that the pandemic was unstoppable, right? In terms of the show and the profiteering and the depopulation. But what I want to tell you is that if we're going to call it a bioweapon, it needs a name, and I named it. I named it recently, and its name is Agent SVX. So Spike Venom X, named after the other agent that is very similar to it, a chemical organophosphate, which is called VX. This is a biotoxin that matches the same profile, and it now has a name. It's Agent SVX, because it's a venomous spike protein. And once we at least establish that we're not going to call it just a bioweapon anymore, then maybe people can say, well, how does this bioweapon work, right? If it's a bioweapon, then what is it doing, right?
But it's a good start to call it that.
Yeah.
All right. So I was on team, Dr. Villa, I was on teams like with Dr. Braun, minded PhDs, experts in their fields. And I was on all the protocols that we talk about currently and still dying. By March of 21, I was diagnosed at early stages of Alzheimer's and CTE. And this gentleman below here came to me like an angel and says, here, this is what you got to do. Now, we'd been talking, but he didn't talk to me. He pulled me out of my death spiral. I was dazed, maybe 20, 30 days from being dead.
Yeah.
And to come back from what I have, Dr. Villa, and using protocols from him and other teams, I've been able to help with others. And it's a blessing.
Wow.
And tonight happened for a reason. God put us all together in this room so we can be the lions on the front lines to help our brothers and sisters. And I've known that. God just kind of puts these things together. So Hope for Humanity, Hope House here in Orlando is a non-for-profit 501c3. Dr. Braun is more than willing to jump on board. We need funding just like you need funding. But I tell you what, we can really change this world and change the tide, because the lions and lionesses are coming together. So Dr. Braun, thank you for saying that. And Dr. Villa, you've proven the cohort. You've got 4,000 plus patients, and you have the data. Like, please take us to trial, somebody. Please, please, because our brothers and sisters are dying.
Yeah.
And
it's increasing. It's increasing more. I posted my statement on Facebook. I don't know, for some reason it garnered almost 4 million views. And so doctors from Germany, from France, from Italy, and from Scandinavia, and they were making comments, and some of them are angry at me. I'm like, I can't change it. It's a very uncomfortable fact, but that's the evidence. I told them, I'm really praying that I'm wrong, that it's not what it is.
It is what it is, right? I mean, I think that this is where the true strength is going to come out, and what you're going to find is it's going to get easier, because part of what you missed in the beginning of the conversation is that the main gatekeepers are exiting. They've done their job. They've blocked the information. They've made their stories. They've had their false narratives, but they're getting their paychecks and they're exiting now. And so it is an opening, just like you'll see in terms of the fact that once you have a battlefield, right now you have the opening where there's a ceasefire and you have to start pulling people and triaging, and you have to get them off the battlefield.
Yeah.
And this is triage at this point.
And you know, this year, a lot of the dementia are coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been testing them with the amyloid. They don't have it. Usually, it's the dementia people or with diagnosis of dementia or at least family history of dementia. And then I would test them, and you know, they're positive for the amyloid, beta amyloid 42 and 40. Now, all you need is either you're vaccinated or severe COVID infection. And they are, I think I've tested, I don't know, probably 300 people. I'm going to analyze it because I'm putting it, you know, with Alzheimer, family history, positive amyloid, and then the p-tau as well. And they go together with a positive fibrin. And so these are, I think, the white, you know, white clots that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do a quick analysis.
You said it yourself in terms of where that's coming from. If you've got cells that are supposed to be going through a differentiation process, and they're supposed to be splitting into their specializations, and and the body's giving them an instruction to go back, right, which is called de-differentiation, right? Now you got a space issue, right? If you're building something and you're not using it, right, and your organs are pumping it out, whether it's you know, the islets of Langerhans, whether it's in the bone marrow, if you've got these specialized cells, right, and you're telling them to go back and become non-specialized, well, where they're going to fit, right? It's like everyone has a closet in their house, which is the push-away closet. You put everything in it and you shut the door and you hope nothing falls out, right? So if you have time, you can neaten up and you can put everything back in the closet, right? Nicely. But if your guests are coming and everything was out and you want to put everything back in, you're going to be pushing everything back in, which is essentially protein folding. So it's a space issue, right? The other thing is, when you're talking about the dementia, you've got so many processes involved, but you're also, some of the things that people are not looking for on this level, because it's mostly just research topics, and if people aren't interested in it. But in terms of pathology, for example, you have structural changes in the brain being driven by corpora amylasia, right? Brainstones, right? Brainstones. So corpora amylasia is associated with COVID, and long COVID, and vaccine injury. So if you're starting to fill the brain with corpora amylasia is associated with neurodegenerative diseases, whether it's Alzheimer's, whether, you know, regardless of what form of dementia, you will find a correlation of brainstones, and that's, once again, that you're literally having a calcium issue. You have calcium channels opening and calcium leaking out, and then where are they going to go?
So Dr. George Rozelle, senior fellow in neuroscience, neurofeedback, mapped my brain June of 2020 and 5 other times. And by March, it won't show up, but you can see a little bit of the scanning on the to the left over here. That was my frontal lobe, maximum slowing. Early stages dementia was CTE, the thing that Will Smith did the whole movie Concussion on. And bronze protocols on top of things that with cold laser, we were able to reverse it. And by this time right now, by this time right now, I wouldn't be able to have a conversation with you.
Dan was going to be, in my opinion, and I'm not a medical doctor, but I've been involved in the medical field since 15. I started actually. This is a confession that a lot of people don't know about me, and probably the reason that I'm so passionate is my first job on this planet. My first job that you want to call professional, besides chores, was vaccinating babies at 15.
Wow.
Right. That was my first job, right? Vaccinating babies at rural clinics at 15, right, in South Africa. And so I've been around medicine and the medical model my entire life. And as a clinical psychologist, obviously a lot of clinical psychologists, they land up being therapists. But what was really interesting for me is pathology. I wanted to understand pathology. I wanted to understand also, what drugs do and how they work and why they work at certain doses. I wanted to understand the mechanisms are very important to me. I think in terms of building and breaking, like I want to break it so that I can understand how it works. That's the issue for me in I lost my train of thought, but the cell differentiation that we spoke about is a crucial aspect. And the other aspect that I want to plant a seed for you is what you're looking at is thymic involution, right? So there's you have the thymus. The research has shown that the thymus is decreasing, like an elderly person, in long COVID people by 60%. And I would suggest, because they're not actually looking for this in vaccine injury, I would suggest that it's the same in vaccine injury, but probably worse. And so when you have thymic involution, of course you've got no T cells.
That's it.
Right. So the conversation that we should have offline, the conversation that I'd love to have offline is literally just explaining where these mechanisms are being triggered for, why the FLCC and your own protocol and many of other people's protocols, why they're working, where they're falling short, what's needed, what's not needed. I'm not in the business of treating patients, but you guys are. And that's very important that these protocols actually start getting to a root cause, because otherwise what we're doing is we're putting a Band-Aid on something, or a tourniquet, and you can't, that's not sustainable, right? It's not sustainable to stop those processes.
I'm going to tell you something. Like, let's say, for example, patient very symptomatic. It doesn't matter, long vaccine, long COVID, and they're very sick. So you put them in a very aggressive spike protein detox protocol. And I also use high dose IV vitamin C, high dose of everything, and A.I.D., because they are neurologically very symptomatic. They improve, okay? So I give them, and to tell you honestly, the way I treat long vaccine, long COVID, and cancer, turbo cancer, I treat them the same.
Sure.
Because so they improve. And patient is like, both of us are celebrating, and then they stop the treatment. 6 months later, they come back and they're back to ground zero.
Here we go.
They're back to the same thing.
And so, Dr. Villa,
Nicole has go ahead, Dad.
Nicole has the question that she's gotten.
Well,
I'm gonna unfortunately, I'm gonna hang up. I want to just say absolute pleasure to meet all of you. Scott, I'm looking forward to chatting more offline. And from my side, just God bless all of you. I mean, we all know, and something that we don't highlight, and Nicole and Dan, like, we know the battle that this has been, and we know the energy that it takes, and we know what it feels like, that there's so few of us, right? And so just thank you for the invitation to be in this space, and absolutely anything I can do to continue on the dialogue on help, I'm here for.
And when you get off, I'm going to share everybody's socials. And this man, you buy him a coffee 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. Dr. Braun, I'm going to share your
thank you,
how to find you. And we're going to connect. God connect us for a reason. There's no accidents.
Absolutely.
And we the lions are coming.
Yep.
Fauci, friends, and the rest of you that did what you did, the lions and lionesses are coming. So, Braun, thank you very much. And then Nicole's got a question for the group while you get off. It's spike protein related as far as quantity and whatnot. So go ahead and ask the question, Nicole.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we hear is unfortunately the truth, right? We have to be realistic. I know some of it can be really heavy, and there's a lot of like sadness that comes with it, because we're hearing this word VAIDS and AIDS. What does that mean? And how does this work? And is there hope, right? And so a lot of the things that we get question-wise is, are there any actual products out there or treatments or interventions that are actually removing the spike completely? And are these counts staying where you can't detect it? Or is there still a lot of things in the works to see if that's even possible. I personally have not met anybody that has had it completely wiped, as far as I can see, per their lab work. But I mean, that's one of the questions we always get is what products or things out there that are removing it completely. Does it even exist?
Doesn't exist, Nicole.
Right.
I mean, it can. To me, watching these patients clinically, you can only reduce the load, the spike protein, but then it comes back. But the thing is, we don't have a test for spike protein. What we have is a test for antibody. And the question is, what's the correlation between the two? Is it 100%? The only thing that I can tell the patient when they are positive for antibody is probably you still have or you're producing spike protein because your antibody to the spike protein is very high. I mean, again, preliminary analysis. Do you know that like 86% of these people, their antibody levels are like you cannot measure it. Whether you use what do you call this, Quest or LabCorp, you can't measure 86% of my patient. It doesn't matter whether it's the vaccinated, but I think the vaccinated are much worse. They really, I mean, we're talking about my patient since 2021 because I started looking at these people after the second dose, even after the first dose, because I remember, I started treating long COVID, right? They are fatigued and they have so many symptoms. And then after the vaccine rollout, I started this other wave of people coming in with exactly the same symptom. Actually, in the beginning, I started calling them long COVID. And then I just realized very quickly, I said, these are not long COVID because they didn't, for you to have long COVID, you should have infection, right? But all these people didn't have infection. So I did a quick analysis when I had, I think, I don't know, 258 cases. And true enough, 79% were vaccinated and only 21% were actually, the real cases of long COVID.
When
And
That's
Dr.
profound.
Bill, I have a question. Everyone here, well, I don't know about Scott, but everyone has talked to our Surgeon General Ladapo here in Florida. And when you had the chance to have a private conversation with him, what does he say to you about what he's seen in the Florida data? Because the Surgeon General in Louisiana is now talking about whatever. What has he told you? Like, what can you tell the audience? What we're seeing on the state?
well, yeah, there is no doubt that this vaccine is killing people, and we have so many diseases, or there are so many diseases that is actually, causing, or it is producing very complicated disease syndrome. And he won't admit it, but even the cancer that we are seeing right now that we call tubercle cancer, he said to me, Dr. Vic, I'm with you, but you know how it is. I mean, politics is politics. So he said something like, I'm saying it here. The science hasn't caught up yet, but I told him, it has. I can give you references and all, but anyway, nevertheless, that was the thing. But he's with us. He agrees with what we are seeing. He agrees with what we are saying. And that's why he almost didn't show up in our event, but then he showed up, but in his personal capacity, not as a surgeon general.
Right. And he stands with the vaccine injured. He's very clearly stated that he's on the side of vaccine injury. He recognizes it, he sees it. And again, with ending the mandates in the state of Florida and his announcement, he's trying to put choice back into the hands of the individual and, give them the opportunity to be able to say yes or no, because of so many people that have been harmed and injured and are no longer with us. So he's been really great in that. But like Dr. Villa says, it's the politics of it, I can imagine, are very heavy, because as soon as he came out with ending the mandates, he got a lot of pushback negative wise on that. And just last week, when DeSantis and Ladapo were not in Tallahassee, the lobbyists were coming out in full force. Big Pharma was coming out trying to squash any kind of effort to continue with ending the mandates and trying to stop it. And so, again, it's just really unfortunate that 5 years in, with the amount of harm and death we have seen with these bioweapons, that we can't continue to have this conversation without serious backlash, where our own state surgeon general, in addition to all these wonderful physicians that are on this podcast and beyond that are seeing this as nurses, I'm seeing it in the hospital, and nothing is moving forward as much as it should. That's why we need more people to come forward. This is why we need more people to speak up. This is why we need funding. We need these individuals that are on this podcast who are doing things to be recognized and that people want to help, so that we can get funding and things to better try to come up with a solution. Because like Dr. Villa just said, there isn't anything on the market that is taking it out completely. And I needed that to be said here, because I think there's a lot of misinformation about that. And it's not to deter hope, right? Because we want to get to that point, but we just want to be realistic and understand, like, this is why we're here having these conversations and trying to raise funding and awareness, so we can get to that point and have a better success for these patients.
And as me, I'm a first wave survivor. I was long haul before it was long haul. We helped set the long haul groups up. We were the ones that created the term long haul syndrome. And I've watched for almost 6 years my brothers and sisters die and suffer in rooms and begging for help. And I went before the Congress and Senate not once but twice. May of 21, we told them 36 million Americans were suffering this, and left untreated, it was going to cost between $4 to $5 trillion and collapse our medical system. And yet here we are, right where we are. And I can tell you, though, as someone that was near death and is now currently doing what I am doing and helping others, part of the solution to this is going to be, because these spike proteins continue to be shedding and spreading, and people keep getting different injections, and they don't even realize when they take some of these flu injections that they're crossed over with mRNA COVID, and they're not telling these poor people, they're lying to them. And that's more reinfections, is prevention. And McCall is a second person that's caught on to one of the things I've done since the very beginning, thanks to Dr. Braun, once he showed me, because he had a product called Copperine. Before I go out, I spray my nasopharynx, my mouth, my eyes, and I use this copper zinc sulfur spray as a preventative, as a protective measure to help keep me from catching all these newer things. But also, Dr. Braun has figured out many ways to help replenish and you too, this is high-level integrations, what you're talking about with high CIVs, high BIVs, because you're not methylating, and there's so many things that are going on. But we as a group can really start creating protocols and programs that can save millions of people. I know this without a doubt. And to have a bioweapons, and you've got PhDs like Jibzets, and Nicholas Holster, and we've got a lot of great people on the front lines. And look, you were using, Scott, nebulized ivermectin before anybody even knew the power of it. So I'm saying, listen, as much as we have got into the deep of the darkness of this, the light is the people that you want to be listening to are right here. These are your frontliners.
I have to make a disclaimer.
Okay, make your disclaimer.
So yes, but these were people that they had been sent home from the hospital. They were seeing other people going in, and they just disappeared, and they were never seen again. And they made, so these were people that had made a decision that under no circumstances were they going to go to the hospital. So if I'm there, and sometimes I had to do it because they'd be in Michigan or New York, and I'd have to get the family on board to do some of these things and create these nebulizer treatments. But I think it's important for people to understand it wasn't random. I studied it extensively. I did every single therapy that I recommended on other people for me first. I wanted to see how my system would respond to it with dosages when I would nebulize magnesium or nebulize melatonin. You know, I wasn't just, I mean, I was kind of guessing, but I figured if it doesn't hurt me, right? If it's not caustic to me, if we've got these preparations, and it can be of benefit when we look at the mechanistic actions that, you know, like the mechanisms of you know, all of that micro leakage of fluid into the lungs and blah blah blah, the leakage and what melatonin does. So there was some study behind it. I'm just, so people like, he's crazy for doing that. It was last ditch effort to try and save people's lives, and we were just adding things in until we were able to reverse their acute respiratory failure. Just needed to give a disclaimer.
No, but I'm just saying, you had the foresight and the background to look where peer review is, to look at alternatives, because it wasn't the first time we had a respiratory a pandemic or plandemic coming out, because we had, what was it, SIRS, Middle Eastern syndrome, respiratory, like, and so they were looking in 04, 05, 06 on if we look at our NIH, on medications and drugs that would help with this. And the Faucis and the Daziks and the Barracks and everybody else in the world that demonized the people that were speaking on these drugs as if they were poison, you were the same people, the criminals that did these and sponsored these trials back in 04, 05, 06. And so there was a trail, a pathway of showing that these things would work. And so, you know, listen, everybody that's been tuning in tonight, Dr. Villa coming in, Scott, the only, so just so you know, I wasn't falsely advertising somebody. She is not feeling well. And that's part of when you're an advocate and you're injured. The event I took Z2 2 years ago that you hosted, you know, one of the advocates, Lindsay, couldn't make it. She was right there and still couldn't make it to the thing, because you never know when a flare-up is going to happen or your immune system's going to decide it's time to kick your ass today, and it's no fun. And that's like, I'm just trying to balance both sides of it, because I know as someone who went through this hell, who was in and out of the hospital 10 times in 2020 and 21, and somehow God protected me, kept me from dying with all the, you know, death protocols that were going on. I seen it. I seen 36 times in 3 hours sepsis being called in the emergency room. 36 times. I'm going, as a medic, I never seen anything like this. And that was during the Delta wave. So to be a witness to history, to have survived it, and to be on the front lines with you, our brothers and sisters, your work is, there's no value of anybody's work here to be put on, because it's a tireless, thankless thing. But I'm so happy that we're all coming together. Scott, you sure you don't want to move to Florida? You sure you don't want to move to Florida?
I mean,
I got 2 buildings here in Orlando that will be a not-for-profit integrative type of clinic. We can work with Dr. Villa and help them get in her funding for the second round trial. Like, I'm ready to move. I am so ready to start helping more of our brothers and sisters. And
my daughter keeps asking, when can we move to Florida? And you know,
oh, where is Scott? Where are you?
We're in East Texas. We were in Washington for a while, and then we had to. We're in East Texas, but
move to Florida. What are you waiting for?
I think we need to have a private group chat and start working something else, because
hey, you have to plug the book, dude.
I'm going to. Listen, we've been so good in the weeds here of all the fun things that everyone's listening to. They're going, this is unbelievable, but it's all true. Knowledge is power in the Bible, especially during biblical times. And what we have in spades is more knowledge about what we're truly dealing with. Know thy enemy, know thyself, do not fear 1,000 battles. Sun Tzu's art of war. We're all facing the enemy. We understand what we're dealing with. And I'm so glad this was the launch of Frontline Messengers, because this is the most important issue in human history. You can forget about Epstein. Matter of fact, you know, we talked about all these things. I'm going to bring Epstein up just for a minute, because it's the button right now. It's a hot topic, right? And we were talking about things in history. Our government is not innocent. You know, when we unleashed the atomic bomb, before we dropped it on our enemy, we dropped one in our own states. And all those surrounding communities over the next decade, the government gaslit them while they were dying of cancers, all the things once the immune system breaks down. And
Yeah.
since we're talking about Epstein, let me just play a video of someone that is going to give an apology that we need now.
Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. The goal was to understand the effects of radiation exposure on the human body. While most of the tests were ethical by any standards, some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted. They failed both the test of our national values and the test of humanity. Informed consent means your doctor tells you the risk of the treatment you are about to undergo. In too many cases, informed consent was withheld. Americans were kept in the dark about the effects of what was being done to them. The deception extended beyond the test subjects themselves to encompass their families and the American people as a whole. For these experiments were kept secret, and they were shrouded not for a compelling reason of national security, but for the simple fear of embarrassment, and that was wrong. So today, on behalf of another generation of American leaders and another generation of American citizens, the United States of America offers a sincere apology to those of our citizens who were subjected to these experiments, to their families, and to their communities. When the government does wrong, we have a moral responsibility to admit it. The duty we owe to one another to tell the truth and to protect our fellow citizens from excesses like these is one we can never walk away from. Our government failed in that duty, and it offers an apology to the survivors and their families, and to all the American people who must be able to rely upon the United States to keep its word, to tell the truth, and to do the right thing.
Yeah, tell the truth and do the right thing.
That's age well doll.
Yeah. I just want, what do you call this? Before I leave, because I just want to tell everyone, okay, the cases of COVID are actually increasing. And you guys, unfortunately, the vaccinated, if you have complication and if you get the infection right now, it's going to exacerbate things that you have. And that's what I'm seeing. If you have whatever it is, whether it's autoimmune or you already have a pre-existing immune deficiency, when you get the COVID, the infection, it's going to get worse. And I have to see how long it's getting worse. And so the patient, especially the most common symptom is still fatigue. And then the COVID infection right now is very mild. Some of them, they don't even know. But I know they get bad because they come in and they're bad. And their antibodies are sky high again, the levels. And another autoimmune is coming out. And so I will encourage everybody to avoid getting infected for real. Don't get infected because it's like you get boosted either by injection or infection. It's a spike protein. That's what I see, okay? So do your best not to get infected. And I'm going to tell you guys, we're getting infected by our own bacterial, stuff. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of colonic bacteria up here. What is that? Only when your immune system is not right that the opportunistic infection are actually going somewhere, whether in the sinuses, in the mouth, in the throat, and obviously the lungs.
So then,
Whether this, it's not supposed to be. We don't see that up here, Nicole. If your immune system is good, the colonic bacteria, they're going up. They're going up. I see it here.
So what things can people do to try to prevent themselves from being sick? I mean, I guess that's maybe something to ask.
For one thing, we remember during the the pandemic, we have those nasal spray. I think you guys should carry that. And when you are in the crowded area, just spray, spray your nose, from time to time. And you can use the iodine povidone nasal spray or the 3% hydrogen peroxide. You can dilute it. You can make your own nasal spray. If you buy one of those containers that's nasal spray, you can mix your own solution. And I think you should just bring it when you're in a crowded area, especially if it's enclosed. But if it's outside and there's a crowd, it's much better because it's an open space. But if you're inside a room, it's still very contagious. It's so easy to catch, and once you get the COVID, the problem is you're not gonna die from COVID. Nobody dies from COVID anymore, but you get infected. Secondary infection is very, very fast, to set in. That is the thing.
Dr.
That's
Villa,
It's aggressive early.
yeah.
It's funny because
Uh-huh.
I'm not affiliated. I try not to, but I have my Snoot nasal spray. I bring it with me, right? Chlorine
Just
dioxide. I
take
do
it
that.
with.
No,
Oh,
see,
thank you. Yeah,
right?
show that everybody. That should be like our little thing in our
Your
pocket.
toolbox. Your toolbox.
Yeah.
But this is what and I listen. I'm just finishing up book 2, and I wrote a phrase that, and I was laughing, and it's not funny, but I've had this conversation over 5,000 times, and that's not a high. I'm downplaying the number of times I physically had that same exact conversation, begging
Mhm.
people, like, because what they think, it's like when Omicron came. We'll just ride it out because it's just like a bad cold. It's a bioweapon, like as Dr. Braun was saying. It's not a cold; it's a bioweapon, and it's attacking you. And I remember Dr. Reish. I was in a round table in Delaware with this awesome
Yeah.
dude named Abraxas Hudson, and he said, "Thank God for Omicron." And I said, "Sure." Except it's like the Trojan horse, because now people aren't being aggressive about treating it and they just let it
Mhm.
run its course. And then we started
Yeah.
really seeing these long COVID patients because they just,
Yeah.
like, I wanted to stop replication as quickly as possible. I wanted to boost my immune system and immediately.
Mhm.
I wasn't like, well, let's see. I would wake up with a little scratchy throat, a little irritated, and for me, it was always a little bit of an ache behind my eyes. No pain, just weird. A little bit of low back pain. I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, there we go. And I just went boom. I mean, I took more
Mhm.
black cumin, but I always took my round of ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and colchicine, and then my vitamins.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I didn't bogart it. I'm taking it right now. If it happened to my wife in like 30 minutes, and then melatonin, 5 milligrams of melatonin every 3 hours, and then like 40 at night. Let's get that innate immune system boosted. And by, within a couple hours, she's like, I'm good. And then I tell her, that's cool, but don't mom hero it. Keep it low key. Because everybody's like, I feel better. And
Mhm.
then they get that kind of almost Epstein Barr, like mono type of fatigue after overdoing it. And then they dive back into that, little pool of hell.
this
a
is
lot
what I
of-
use. I've got a nano mister.
well,
And
we try to
it-
tell our patients like the basic
Yeah.
stuff, right? Because not everyone knows like these products. So we're trying to say do the nasal spray, providone iodine twice a day, keep your mouth clean, hand washing, sunlight, hydration, all those things. But they're not hearing enough of that, and that's why I'm asking. And it comes out better when a physician is saying it. But in the hospital, we're seeing a rise in the heart attack patients. We're seeing a rise in the stroke patients. Our sepsis counts at one hospital, 400 in a month of sepsis
Oh,
alerts
wow.
going off. These patients are coming in and they're very, very sick. And a lot of them are having, because of, like Dr. Villa said, the immune responses, they're dying from like secondary sepsis infections. And a lot of these patients have anywhere from 2 to 10 COVID-19 vaccines that we can see in the hospital, in addition to flu vaccine that's being pushed, RSV, pneumonia, and then of course, what's the other one? The shingles vaccine. So especially in the area that we're in, it's just something we keep seeing, and their immune systems are just taking a hit after hit after hit. So I think a lot of times it's just finding a solution and trying to give people something to work towards and be accountable for their health, and give them tools that they can use that are easy, because not everyone has a ton of money, and and so just trying to get the basics.
Well,
Very
thank
good.
you, everyone. Thank you for coming on. I know we went way over than we should have. I'm going to plug a couple things here. Scott's book is called "The Most Dangerous Man in Washington." Big
Oh,
state that is. Now you can get it on Amazon. Look at that handsome devil. I told him he was going to be our honey trap tonight, honey pot. But Frontline Heroes, amazing. Thank you, Scott, for coming on. And
yeah.
listen, we're all working together. We'll come back on, because this is a mission of love and passion to help people out there that are suffering this crap that our governments have failed us in. And hopefully, we don't have a slick Willie on the Lolita Express giving us the "we're sorry that we poisoned you guys" 20 years from now. But right now, we are in the front of the fire, and we are the ones standing in the gap trying to help these patients. And right now, Dr. Villa, you with 4,000 or 5,000 patients is absolutely incredible. And Nurse Nicole, you've got like 15 things you're doing at one time as an advocate. So thank you for hanging out with us and co-hosting this. It's a once a month event, but we will, you're on Nurses Out Loud. If people want to find and hear more about what you're doing on the daily basis, you're always doing Nurses Out Loud, or advocating, or fighting for Florida laws, trying to get bills passed like Cody's law. And Scott, you continue to work on amazing things, and we just got to get you in Florida. Tell the wife, hey, we're moving to Florida starting next year, and we're going to start saving millions of people's lives. And she's going to go, okay.
Right. Yeah.
So
Nice meeting you, Scott.
Yeah,
nice meeting you.
I'm
Nice
gonna
meeting
say
you.
thank you guys. It's a pleasure, Dr. Villa, and for Dan and Nicole. I'm humbled that I get to sit here and be in. I know the tireless work in Dr. Villa. I'm like, I remember when I had an office and I was surrounded by just chaos. It was all just chaos of data and constant need of patients. I would, there were days that my wife would call and like, "Are you coming home tonight?" Because the floods. So I would be at my office for 2.5 days. People would bring me clothes and food so I could change. I didn't get to leave unless I was going to homes, and I would come straight back to the office. That's the kind of tireless work that you're doing, and people don't know. It's like, oh, she did some studies. No, she didn't. You've dedicated your life to serving your patients, to serving the public, to serving humanity, and to get this information out, to get this information to us. It's heroic.
Amen.
Okay.
God bless you. So, Dr. Villa, let's see if I got this correct. This is your X account. So if you want to follow Dr. Villa on X, there it is, Marivic Villa MD5.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Nurse Nicole, if you want to follow Nurse Nicole, my fellow lioness, it is Henak03. And Scott, I somehow have lost you on X because they deleted my account, my 9th account, like 2 months ago. So I have a new one.
Well, I have 2, so I'm glad that you didn't go with the first one.
I don't have you to promote it, so I'm sorry.
You gotta plug it in.
But this is Dr. Braun. Before I'll let you plug it in, but Dr. Braun is Dr. Tao Braun on X. Please follow him and buy him a coffee because just like the rest of you, he's put tens of thousands of hours in this, and we're all trying to do the one thing is helping our brothers and sisters. And one more time for Scott, this is your book, The Most Dangerous Man in Washington. It's on Amazon, bestseller. New York Times bestseller. Part 2 is coming out when? What's your second book?
I'm hoping by Christmas. I've got a few things. I ran into a couple areas that are hard to figure out how to write both legally and emotionally, and so I'm getting a little stuck because I like it to be pretty close to exact as far as how things happen and directly from my journal, and then weave it in. And I'm like, I can't say any of these things. Like, I'll go to jail. And my attorneys are like, no, you can't. You cannot. These are words you cannot say to anyone. It's like, aw, dang it. So I had to, and then it goes back to what's the purpose of the book? Is it telling cool stories or sharing stories where I get to watch God engage in my life and create all of these miracles and then bringing people into this community and just, I look at it as these books are more of a gratitude for being trusted to serve and trying to. I made a statement. One of the last things I wrote in book 1 was that if somebody gets the end of this book and is not a believer, then I failed in my writing, because it's all about how God uses us. It's how he uses regular people that have faith and belief and choose to say yes, and he brings us together and we can move mountains, and it's through him, and it's just a beautiful thing.
Well, thank you again for coming on the very first
Thank
podcast
you.
of Frontline Messengers with me and Nurse Nicole. Obviously, this war will keep going on, and I think we're going to be lining up together. Thank you for coming on, Scott.
Absolutely.
Have a blessed night.
Yeah.
Dr. Villa, thank
Yes.
you for coming on, and thank you for all the tireless, endless work that you're doing. No matter what these others are saying, this is a global matter. So the quicker they all jump on board and understanding that we're just trying to be a solution to this problem. When we took our oaths, first one was do no harm. So every time someone's giving you grief for speaking out, say, then what did you take that oath for? Your oath is to do no harm, and people are suffering. There's a couple doctors I just keep picking on online that keep trying to, muddy the waters on the work we're doing. And I go, how come you ignore the injured? How come you never speak about, the people that are sick and dying? Only try to muddy the waters on the people doing the good work of the God and for the people. You are trying, we didn't cover this, but you did mention that you were raising funds to do a second round, or what is it you're trying to accomplish?
You see, it's basically for the research so that we can completely, finish it. I've already, use my own resources, but if people can actually help so that we can finish it. I never thought that this is going to be this, costly. Like just trying, because it's a very big data, and trying to put it in a secure place. You have to get a what do you call this? A program? I don't know. We have an IT guy who's trying to protect our our data, and on top of that, just the data encoder alone, I have like 8 of them nonstop. Trying to analyze or trying to collect the data from these 5,000 patients. So, some people are interested in making the contribution. Thank you so much. But, I'll make this go forward, and no matter what, it's going to be done. It's going to be done.
Well, now that we've officially met and talked and shared stories and we've seen who we're working with, we should work on coming together. Like I said, Hope House here in Orlando is a non-for-profit. Our whole goal is to help the injured, especially the first line responders that were injured, like Nurse Nicole, not Nurse Nicole, Nurse Shelley. There's so many amazing people, to help the military injured, like people like Carolina Stanzik, and to help the people who can't afford the therapy. And so that's what I'm trying to build on my God mission with Hope House in Orlando. Working with Dr. Mueller, Integrative, over 30 years. And I think we combine forces. We're a non-for-profit. So if people want to make donations to your cause, then we should kind of set that all up. And Nicole tells me I'm horrible at this, which I am, is actually trying to share that type of information and getting links and whatnot. But it's a blessing, seriously. The people that have tuned into this for the hour, 2 hours that we went over a little bit, I hope you've gotten something out of this, because we will never forget you. Our hearts are set on helping the sick and the wounded out there. And until my last breath, I know it in my heart that you are just as committed, all of us that have been on here, to make that goal happen.
Yeah, Dan, actually, let's say if people actually contribute to what we're doing, even if there's a little extra money, because I'm going to make this into a perspective one, because right now what we're doing is a retrospective study. So these are all the patients that I've already seen and treated in the past, and then we're just collecting all the data. But I want to follow these people for another 3 to 5 years and see what happens, because it's going to become a perspective. I'm going to design the study in such a way that we're going to have a very meaningful data, and everybody is going to have the test if they need some testing, and it's going to be a very robust data collection, because it's going to be a prospective one. If I can get help from the government, or let's say apply for a grant, I'm going to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to continue watching these people and actually follow them in the next 3 to 5 years.
There's a movie called The Normal Heart. It came out in, I think,
Mm-hmm.
14. You know the movie?
Was on Purple Heart?
No, the Normal Heart.
Oh, The Normal Heart? No, I didn't see that movie, but
You're going to have to watch it, because it is
okay.
the beginning. It is the beginning of the HIV outbreak in the 80s. Mark Ruffalo's in it. Pretty Woman stars in it. She plays a doctor, and I swear you're that doctor in this story. She's the one that fought like hell to get data and information to the CDC, all those people, and you're doing exactly that same work. So listen, let's just close this up, because we've all gone over, and it's long day for everybody. But thank you. Thank you for
Thank you so much for having me, and we'll see each other again for more, information, and for more conversation, to raise the awareness of people and the public.
1,000%. We will grow this mission out, and we will help. You're so sweet. Very few doctors are like her, by the way. So thank your blessings that she came on, and she's on the front lines for you. The citizens and the people that are suffering this biowarfare, biospike protein, immune dysregulation, AIDS of the 21st century, causing products that they unleashed on us. Let them know lines are coming for them. God bless you. So, Nurse Nicole, oh my God, we made it.
We did. That was a long segment, but you know what? Talk about brilliant human beings, people that literally are walking the walk. There's nothing more powerful than aligning with individuals that are not only saying but doing. And I think that's the great thing about this podcast that I hope we can continue. And again, for the listeners, it's not just going to be on medicine or vaccines or COVID. It is going to cover a lot of other topics, but really kind of get these people to the forefront so you can see these individuals who have been out here trying to raise awareness on various things and share their expertise. I mean, these are incredible human beings. Dr. Villa, I've known for a very long time, and she is ride or die for her patients, and she puts in 16 plus hours a day. I mean, she is just a force. And so it's just incredible that you guys got to hear some of that. And when her study comes out, it is going to be one of its kind. And she's making it as foolproof as possible, because she knows what's going to come. When that comes out, people are going to try to rip it apart and discredit it. And so, yeah, Dan, I'm stoked. I hope you were pleased with it as I was.
The way I look at it is the company that we are keeping, you could not get any better. They are just, faith without works is dead. And they are working their asses off 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. And we hope to be solutions to these problems, because if we don't put these fires out sooner than later with the immune systems that we are seeing with the sick, unfortunately, they no longer be here. So we're trying to prevent that. We are doing everything in our power. So thank you for tuning in. If you want to find out more about what I do, Hope for Humanity 2020, hopeforhumanity2020.com, and hopehouseorlando.org. If you are suffering and you're looking for some answers and hope, fill your information out. As we get funding, as we get this up and running, we will be more than glad to get as many people as we possibly can. And I think tonight we've added more to our team. We've added somebody that can handle some different aspects of this that are outside of the medical realm that have not been looked at deep enough. And that's a blessing as well, because he's been waiting to get into the hunt. Anything else before we get off? Because I'm going to play our closeout.
No, I hope you guys learned something. I hope you got to put these individuals in the back of your mind to revisit and to follow on all socials so you can see how we're doing. And again, Isaiah 6:8, send me. Let's go, baby.
And as the overlookers of the city, this is why I like this one opening. I think I'm going to play the other one on probably another show, but this one right here is for you.